This is Histories and Mysteries Uncovered. I'm Ashley.
And I'm Kyle.
Hi, Kyle.
Hello.
Kyle is subbing in for Jessica because she lost her voice.
Which is kind of nice around here.
She still has to edit this, though, so she's going
That's
to hear
okay.
that, and that'll be hilarious.
I hope so.
Yeah, so Jessica lost her voice, and I am back from my surgery and my recovery. I got the go-ahead today to live as a normal person again. I have been discharged from my surgeon, so I am good to go. But then Jessica lost her voice. So we still wanted to get an episode out for you. So Kyle generously did some research and has a story for you guys today.
Yes, I do.
And
Looking
I still have a
forward to it.
story too. Well, I kind of messed up our whole introduction, so I'm gonna be doing the killer clown.
Sorry. And I'm going to be doing the story of Richard Kuklinski, the Iceman.
Oh, I've never heard of him. So,
Now, he's a couple of movies about him too. So,
oh, really?
yeah.
Okay. All right. Well then I'll jump right in because mine's interesting. I heard a podcast about this a while ago. I want to say it was Let's Go to Court. Everybody knows my favorite podcast. But I can't remember. And I got my sources from ABC News and for a really good 48-hour documentary that I liked.
Nice.
And my first sentence is, Kyle, are you afraid of clowns?
No, I'm not actually.
I'm not either, but you might be after this story.
That's a possibility.
It was May 26th, 1990, and Marlene Warren, her 21-year-old son Joey, who was recovering from a broken leg, along with three of his friends, were sitting around kind of finishing up breakfast, kind of just hanging out. Marlene's second husband, Michael Warren, ran a used car lot and he was off at work. So it was just her and the four boys.
Yeah,
Around, huh?
that's a lot of boys.
It is a lot of boys. And I made sure to put this type of car in here because for those of you that don't know, Kyle is a mechanic. So I just thought you would, I don't know. So I put cars in here. So
Something I enjoy just to add
yes.
on, right?
Yes. So at around 11 a.m., a white Chrysler LeBaron. Do you know what that is?
Sadly, I do, but it's not a nice car.
No. Was it nice in the 90s? Do you know?
No, not a lot of cars in the 90s were actually nice. They were just, something to use.
Gotcha. Well, this car comes into play a lot in the story. So, a Chrysler LeBaron, is that how you say it? LeBaron?
Yeah, that's how you say it.
Okay. Pulled into their driveway, and through the glass, they saw a bunch of colors walk up to the door. So many colors that they thought, is that a clown? Sure enough, when Marlene opened the door, it was a clown with balloons and flowers for her.
Just randomly showed up.
Yep, just randomly showed up.
That's frightening.
One of the balloons said, "You're the greatest." And we can only assume that Marlene probably thought they were from her husband. I mean, who else would be sending her balloons and flowers? And so she said, "Oh, how pretty." And then looked back up to the clown, only this time she was staring down the barrel of a gun.
Oh, that's a surprise.
Killer clown. Joe said he heard a loud bang and his mom fell over. She actually got shot in the mouth, like through the mouth.
Oh, that's terrible.
Yeah. And he saw his mom fell over, so I lost one spot. "Oh, how pretty" would be the last words that Marlene ever said. Joey ran to his mother and he remembers looking at the clown right in the eyes, and he said it had deep brown eyes. The clown was wearing a typical clown costume with a red wig, white gloves, and black shoes. And this is all from Joey's eyewitness report. The clown then went to the car and slowly drove off. Like the clown didn't run back to the car. The clown didn't like speed off, just kind of
Just chill
sauntered
walk
back.
home.
Yeah. Yep.
Oh,
And then
that's
just kind of slowly drove away.
like he did nothing.
Yeah. Yeah. Like he didn't just murder a woman. Leaving Joey and his friends to deal with the aftermath. They called 911 and immediately got her to a hospital, but Joe didn't go to the hospital straight away. He got in his car and tried to follow the clown, but he couldn't catch up.
Couldn't catch a Chrysler LeBaron.
Well, it had a bit of a head start,
I guess
and
that's true.
the poor guy had a broken leg.
Oh, yeah, that doesn't
Yeah.
help.
Marlene was put on life support, but sadly, 2 days later, she passed away. Police immediately went to work. The first thing they followed up on was Joe's description of the clown. Aside from the clown costume, Joe also said that he thinks the clown was a male and around 6'1" and skinny.
Yeah, interesting.
I have
That's tough.
another line in here for you, Kyle.
Uh-oh.
I was writing the script to you. It says, so I know you're not super into true crime, but you do listen to our pod. So who do you think was the first person they decided to check out?
Well, I guess it depends on the location, but I mean, like John Wayne Gacy was a clown who killed people. But I don't know if it was the same time frame.
Oh, that's a good thought. That's a good thought. Hmm. Well, mine was what I was looking for was the husband.
Oh, that makes sense too.
But I like your thought. That was a good one. They always suspect the husband. So Michael, who was Joe's stepdad, had married Marlene when Joe was about 3 years old. So he was basically the only dad that Joe had ever known. Joe described him as a good dad. And let me tell you, together, him and Marlene made bank.
That's always
Mar-
good.
I know. Marlene owns several businesses, including an apartment complex. And together they owned a car sales and rental company. And they lived in a very rich neighborhood in Palm Springs, kind of secluded off by itself. But I'm talking rich, rich, like helipads in the backyard. The neighborhood had its own airstrip.
Oh
Like
man, that is definitely flex for sure.
they are doing good. One time, actually, when we lived in Arizona, Cody went to go pick up something off of like Facebook Marketplace, and the neighborhood he pulled into had their own airstrip. And he was like, holy crap.
An own airstrip. That's just
Isn't that
something else.
insane?
It's like drug dealer style.
Right? So they were doing really, really well for themselves. But according to Joe, not everything was going well in the marriage. He said that his mother told him that she thought Michael was having an affair and even went as far to say that if anything happens to her, look to Michael.
Oh.
Yeah. And Joe said, no, he would never hurt you. But, when you're a kid growing up, you don't necessarily know everything that's going on behind closed doors.
No, you never do. And even when they do, they don't think the worst of anything.
Absolutely. Yeah. And her response to him was, don't put it past him. Marlene also said the same thing to her mom. She said that if anything happens to her, Mike did it.
Wow, everybody suspects him already.
Yeah. So he's already,
He's in trouble.
yeah. But when they went to talk to Michael, he had a pretty airtight alibi. He was in the car with some friends driving to a Miami racetrack.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, so lots of, witnesses, obviously all of his friends, and they could track him and see where he, was presumably. And so he had a pretty airtight alibi. But after police started talking to friends and coworkers, one name kept popping up: Sheila Keene, who was a repo agent at Michael's work. It was rumored that she was having an affair with Michael. And when I say rumored, like everybody knew about it, one of those things.
Yeah, the rumor that isn't so quiet.
Yeah, exactly. Everybody knows about it, but you don't really talk about it. One of her coworkers described her as tough, which makes sense. She's a repo person, so she goes out and repossesses cars. That's a tough job.
Yeah, that's definitely not an easy thing to do.
No. And she kept a gun on her for her own protection because of her work, which I don't blame her at all.
Yeah, no, you definitely need to carry something for that.
Right. People are
And
going to
especially
get pissed.
being a woman on there, you're definitely going to get the guys intimidating or thinking they can intimidate you. So,
Yeah. And she's not a big lady. Like I don't know how tall she was, but she's really thin.
yeah.
So when police went to question Sheila, she said that she was actually out working, but she was unable to provide any evidence of this. She didn't have an address that she went to that they could go talk to the people and be like, hey, did she show up or anything like that? She didn't have any type of evidence. She just said, hey, I was working.
So not a very tight alibi.
Yes. And police kept asking around about her. And Sheila's neighbors said that they thought Sheila and Michael were husband and wife. So that's how much they did not hide their affair.
Yeah, that's pretty bad if everybody thinks it and you're trying to
Mm,
hide it.
yeah. Police also found out that Michael was due to inherit 100% of the businesses that him and Marlene owned, which at this point were mostly in Marlene's name.
Oh, that's very strange, but
Yeah.
certainly motive to say the least.
Yes. Yes. So, like cut and dry, right? It's for sure that. But don't forget that the clown, Joe said the clown was male and Michael had an airtight alibi. So even if police wanted to charge them, they really need more evidence than just, oh, they're having an affair and, what's his face is going to inherit some businesses. Like, that's not a lot of proof. It's good motive, but not proof.
Not concrete enough anyway, for sure.
Right, exactly. So they started to look around to different costume shops, hoping someone might recognize the costume description and might be able to pinpoint who bought them. And thankfully, they were able to find where the costume was from. And there was a worker there named Deborah Offerman who remembered this incident because it was kind of odd. So, about 2 nights before Marlene's murder, a woman came into her store saying she needed to buy a costume, but they were about to close. So, Deborah's like, hey, can you come back tomorrow? We're closed. And the lady said, no, I really need this tonight. I need to get a costume tonight. Deborah said the
Didn't
lady, yeah. Deborah said the lady paid cash, bought a clown suit, an orange wig, and a red nose. She described the lady as about 5'10, long, thick, straight, chocolate brown hair, which describes Sheila.
uh-oh.
So police came back with a photo lineup with several people plus Sheila in it. And Deborah pointed to Sheila and one other photo as possibly being the woman who bought the costume. So she wasn't 100% sure, but she did have Sheila in that possibility.
So at least one of them is likely, at least that way, I guess, right?
Yeah. So some more good circumstantial evidence, but again, not great. They also think they found where the flowers and balloons were purchased, a local Publix. Which, do you guys have Publix in Canada?
No, we don't have that.
Okay, it's a grocery store for the Canadians that listen. And the worker described the woman who bought the flowers and balloons as having dark, long brown hair. Thankfully, a few days after, they found the abandoned Chrysler LeBaron, and they found it in a Winn-Dixie parking lot, which I know you guys don't have because that's a very southern grocery store.
Yeah, definitely don't know that one.
Winn-Dixie. Um, and inside they found synthetic fibers similar to the clown wig, orange fibers, and they found a brown human hair. So remember though that this is the 90s, so DNA testing isn't really a thing yet. It's kind of coming into the forefront, but not yet.
And obviously not accurate enough to be,
Exactly.
admissible in court or anything like that.
Exactly. Yes. But it was enough to get them a warrant to search Sheila's home. That's a tongue twister. And found some synthetic orange fibers in her closet that were similar to the ones found in the Chrysler. And they were able to obtain a piece of Sheila's hair to compare the hair to the hair found in the car. They were microscopically examined and found to be consistent with each other. Again,
Like you said, the testing wasn't reliable enough. So
exactly. And, I think they said something like 4% of the US population would have like consistent hair of this kind. So,
yeah, I imagine it's pretty common to have that color hair.
yeah, and like just the consistency of it's not an exact match. It's not going to be like yes, it's for sure this person. So, and the gun and the costume were never recovered. So that's another kind of ding to the case. And remember, Joe said that it was a 6'1" man. But how sure could Joe be? He only saw the clown for a few seconds and he saw it while like trying to help his mom that had been shot in the face, right?
Yeah, well, 5'10" and 6'1", depending on your angle, look pretty similar.
Yeah, and depending on, if she had any lift in her shoes or anything like that, it could be. And we know that eyewitness accounts are famously unreliable, let alone with the stress that he was under at the time.
Yeah, clown shoes can be big. We know that.
Yeah, exactly. And the clown costume could be baggy and therefore make you think it has more of a man type outline.
Yeah, definitely wouldn't show any form whatsoever. They're not
No,
skin tight.
right, exactly. Police found out that a few weeks before Marlene's murder, that Chrysler LeBaron was stolen from a rival dealership by an employee of Michael's.
Uh-oh. It's starting to get together a little bit, isn't it?
Yes. And so as they started to examine his business more and more, they found like a shit ton of fraud going on. They charged him with racketeering, insurance fraud, and tampering with odometers.
Even with all the stuff he had, he still couldn't, it wasn't good enough for him, right?
I
Just got to keep
apparently,
cheating.
yep. And he was actually convicted with 43 counts of fraud and was sentenced
That
to prison.
wonderful. A good way to end the whole thing.
You know, so he went to prison for fraud. There was nothing to do with Marlene's case. So an arrest was not made at this time because Michael did have the alibi and they didn't have what they felt was enough evidence to move forward with Sheila. And the prosecutor said they did go back and forth, should we arrest her? Should we not? Should we wait and see if more, evidence comes? Should we chance it and bring this to court? And they ultimately decided not to arrest her yet.
I'm surprised they didn't try and get him to do like a almost like a plea bargain, like, if he knew about the murder.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm kind of surprised too. And maybe they did and he just said no, and
He's
it
af
never got released.
he's too afraid of Marlene considering what she did, if
Right.
she did it.
So after Michael was sent to prison, Sheila just kind of disappeared and the case went cold. Because his mother's case was left unsolved, Joe fell into alcoholism and depression. But eventually he went to rehab and came out on the other side. He said that he decided that this was not the life he wanted to live.
It's a good thing he got out of that.
Yeah, I thought that was awesome. Then in 2013, 23 years after Marlene's murder, there was a new prosecutor, Reed Scott, who started to look over Marlene's case again. And in 2017, the cold case team was able to use mitochondrial DNA analysis to trace the hair found in the car back to Sheila.
Yeah, try saying that 5 times fast.
I know. And I actually wrote in here mitochondrial Dan analysis, which is similar, but you use a man named Dan. So police immediately started looking for Sheila Keene. And lo and behold, guess where they found her? In Tennessee, married to Michael, who was now out of prison.
Oh, wow.
Yes, apparently they got married in 2002 and they ran a burger joint in Tennessee called the Purple Cow.
That is a weird name.
Yeah, I thought so. I've seen like Purple Cow for ice cream, but
I've
not a
seen
burger
purple.
joint.
We had a Purple Pig restaurant and it was like a smokehouse.
That makes
And that
sense.
was,
Purple Pig. Well,
it's still a little odd, but I still find
yeah,
the Purple Cow weirder.
I do too, and I don't know why. But Sheila was now a blonde and she was going by the name Debbie.
Of course she was. At least she
Of course
wasn't, I
she
guess, like
was.
something better.
Yeah. Well, and it's funny too. They interviewed a couple of her employees from the Purple Cow, and they said that she was a tough boss, aka bitchy. And they said that everybody knew, like there was rumors swirling around that place that Sheila had murdered Michael's first wife and had done it in a clown costume. Like everybody, it was again one of those rumors that's a rumor, but like everybody knows.
These people can't keep any secrets at all.
How did that get out? Like you're
And
in
yet
a whole new state.
they don't get arrested. I mean, everybody knows, but we
I
don't
know.
know.
I know. It's crazy. So this doesn't matter. I just think it's gross. But during one Halloween, Debbie or Sheila dressed up as a clown and went to work at the Purple Cow.
That is ironic and awful and terrible. And
Yeah, I just hate that. That has no bearing on the case, but I hate it. So by 2017, the couple had retired and were living in a nice house in Virginia when police caught up with her and they actually arrested her on a road that she was going to her house on September 26, 2017, and extradited her down to Florida.
oh, Florida. Uh-oh.
Sheila sat in prison for 5 years waiting for her trial to begin because, as we know, the whole court system moves extremely slow.
Well, let's be honest too. It's Florida, so they're busy.
They're real busy. Um, Her attorney said that Sheila is innocent. Of course, he has to, but he seemed like he really believed it. He did try to argue that Joe said it was a man, so how could it be Sheila if Joe, the only witness, said it was a man? And even questioned the validity of the DNA evidence on a sample, saying that, like, oh, it was in storage for too long, which that's it's not really a thing. But he also said that, of course, her hair was found in the car because it was in the lot of the car company that she worked at, which I would assume that a repo worker probably doesn't enter every car in the lot, but that was his argument.
Or wear a hairnet, right?
Yeah. He said that prosecution also failed to look at any other suspects. There was one inmate who said that he had killed Marlene, but after police looked into it, they cleared him. And that was really the only, they didn't really give details too much on that. He also said that the fibers found in the car could match several types of products, not just a clown wig, which, okay, I'll go with this argument. That's a valid argument. And he said that over the decades in storage, the evidence bags were torn open, which can lead to contamination. And they were not properly stored. There was tears and rips and holes in these evidence bags.
That's what you get for doing it in the 90s.
Exactly. In the 48-hour special, he showed a picture of one of the bags, and you could see an orange wig sticking out. It was a wig that police had purchased, that they thought was similar to the wig worn, so that they could compare it to the fibers found to see if they would match an orange wig. So the bags were pretty bad. However, well, yeah, so you can have some cross contamination happening in that, I guess. So I can get behind that argument, but I think it would be, I think they're grasping for straws, I guess is my point.
Or synthetic hairs.
So aside from his misgivings, prosecution said that they were going to try for the death penalty.
They did death penalty in Florida?
Apparently.
Wow.
Yeah, I don't know if they still have it, but at least in 2017 they did.
Yeah, really?
Yeah.
Did you know the last guillotine was in 1977 in
Yeah, that's
France?
way too close to home.
Yeah, that's the same age as me.
Aww.
Um, yeah, so when I was born, they got rid of it. That's probably a good thing.
You afraid you're gonna get off by the guillotine?
I don't know. Jessica knows some stuff.
I'll get it out of her. So oddly enough, when Sheila was arrested, she said to the police, well, you're gonna arrest him too, pointing to her husband, Michael. So it's not a
Doesn't
lot of
want to doesn't want to go down alone.
exactly. But Michael was never arrested because there wasn't any evidence against him, and he maintains both he and Sheila's innocence. Of course he does. A few weeks before trial was scheduled to begin, Sheila took a plea deal with the prosecutors. She pled guilty to second-degree murder and got a 12-year sentence, which is crazy to me. And they counted the 5 years that she had already been in prison awaiting her trial. So she had 7 years left to serve.
Yeah, they always do that.
I know. So she's expected to be released in 2025, but possibly sooner based on good behavior.
I don't get good behavior in a prison. I mean, you're there for a reason.
I know.
But if you're
I
good
know.
in prison,
Like, yeah, you're good when you're locked down 24/7. Good for you.
it's hard to be bad when you're there.
Yeah. So while Sheila did not serve much time in prison, and Marlene's son Joe would have liked to have seen more time served, he feels at peace with the fact that his mother's murder has been brought to justice.
Yeah, at least he knows 100%, even if the punishment didn't fit the crime to him.
Exactly. And well, the thing is, Sheila said she pled guilty, but through her lawyers, she still maintains her innocence. She's like, it sucks that I have to plead guilty to a crime that I didn't commit, but I was looking, at life, because at this point, prosecution had decided to take the death penalty off the table, but she was still looking at several more years in prison than 12. So she decided to take the plea deal because she thought it wouldn't look good for her, which it wouldn't. I think most juries would have probably convicted her based on the evidence that they did have, the fact that they were having an affair. She got married to Michael and Michael inherited all that shit. Like, I think she would have gotten convicted.
Yeah, you normally don't do a plea deal unless you're guilty.
Yeah. So she's getting out possibly next year.
Uh-oh.
So as long as nobody else dates Michael, we should be safe.
Yeah, and Killer Clown will be back.
Oh gosh. So yeah, the sad thing about it was, and this is some people were commenting on the 48 hours documentary, and I didn't even think about this, but Marlene liked clowns. She actually painted a lot of clowns. So they said that whoever killed her, either it was a crazy coincidence that they dressed up like a clown, or they knew her and like knew details about her.
Yeah, it would be like the most innocent thing to her having a clown come to your house. You know, like if you were
Yeah.
terrified of them, yeah,
Yeah.
probably wouldn't open the door. But if you love
Right.
them,
Yeah. So that is unfortunately the story of the murder of Marlene Warren.
goodness, that's not a nice story, but a good story, you know?
Yeah, that's what Jessica and I always say. You did a good job. It was a horrible story.
Yeah, well, that's a good thing, I guess.
Yes. All right, so let's hear about an Iceman. Is he from Canada?
No. Yeah, he's actually,
Okay.
I believe he was based out of New Jersey,
Oh, I just
from what I
figured
remember.
ice, Canada, you know.
It's cold up in New Jersey too. Come on now.
It is. And my parents live in Michigan. They're getting pounded with a storm right now.
Oh, are they? Oh, goodness. I know Quebec's getting pounded, and we're supposed to get one tonight, but we'll
Oh,
see.
well, we'll knock on wood for you guys.
All right, thanks. Actually, you'll find out why he's called the Iceman in the story at least. So,
Okay. Okay.
all right. So, in regards to Richard Kuklinski, the Iceman, there's two stories. There's the one that he's told, and there's a belief that he's a complete pathological liar, which means everything he told is fabricated except for the fact that they did catch him murdering four people, apparently.
Oh God. Okay.
But he seemed to relish in the whole, ambiance of I'm famous now and told this
Mm,
story. So I'm going to go with the fun story because it's far more interesting than the other one.
okay.
So first off, Richard was born April 11th, 1935 in Jersey City. Now, to start off, his father was an aggressive alcoholic.
Oh, geez.
Yeah, and his mother was on the opposite side. She's very stern and very religious. It's an odd combo.
That is an odd couple. I wonder how those fights went.
Oh, here, I'll tell you.
Oh, okay.
He was beaten by both parents regularly.
Oh.
Apparently, his father was so rough, it is believed that he killed Richard's older brother.
Oh
But
my
the police,
gosh.
yeah, the police were only told he fell down the stairs. So you know how that goes.
Oh my gosh.
I know. You always get that warning from your parents. I could brought you in, I can take you out. Well,
He meant it.
he meant it, yeah.
That's so
So,
sad.
of course, that kind of a childhood, you kind of grow up with problems, and he ended up torturing and killing a lot of the neighborhood cats and stray dogs. So clearly,
Oh,
clearly had issues.
I also hate that.
Yeah. So he dropped out of school in grade 8. He's 14 years old, so he definitely got left back a couple of times. He also, at the same time in that year, beat the town bully to death.
Oh my God.
Yeah, so he started really young.
At 14?
That's what it said, but like I said, if he's telling the truth or not is the big question. So,
Okay, okay.
so in the 1950s, he got involved by being indebted to a Soldato Roy de Mayo, which was a member of the Gambino family.
Hmm.
And I'm sure many people have heard that name before. I think it was the Goodfellas movie was based around that idea.
Oh.
So the other thing about Richard was he also 6'5" and 300 pounds.
Oh, wow. That's a big boy.
Yeah, that's an intimidating fellow for sure.
Yeah.
So what happened a lot of the times was DeMeo would actually send his men to beat up on Richard to collect money from him because I guess he was defiant or owed him. And actually what ended up happening is he gained respect for Richard because he took the beatings without any question. Just seemed to almost enjoy it. So it was a little questionable, but again, like with his upbringing, you can't say it was surprising.
Also, I can see a guy who's trying to fabricate a story being like, yeah, I just took the beatings and he respected me for it, you know?
Oh yeah, for sure. It's definitely there's a lot of it that reeks that he's
Yeah.
full of something.
Yeah.
So eventually he was hired by DeMeo and he ended up doing trafficking illegal pornography, staging robberies, and would be like basically a mob enforcer and beat up whoever they wanted to warn.
Oh,
you know.
okay.
So, and he was gaining respect, and it caught the attention of the higher ups in the Gambino family, which apparently was one of five mob families that ran New York City.
Wow.
So I didn't know there was that many. It's kind of scary. It was so the idea is that Richard was considered a recreational killer until he became part of the Gambinos, and then he was a professional killer.
Oh, nice. Yes. Uh-huh. The difference between
Yeah,
recreational and professional. Yes, yes,
yeah,
yes.
yeah. It's like a recreational sport and a professional sport. There's a big difference. So as the reputation grew, the notorious Decavallant family, apparently the Sopranos show was based in this Jersey crime family. So I
Oh.
screwed up the name, I'm sure, but somebody will figure it out.
Did you ever watch The Sopranos?
I didn't,
I didn't
but funny
either.
enough, it was actually on, and I actually watched the first episode
I've
for
seen
like
the
the
first
first time.
episode as well.
Yeah, well, I finally watched it in 2024, so a
Okay,
little
there you
behind.
go.
Yeah. So they hired him for his first gang killing, and he thoroughly enjoyed the killings and would take any job for murder, partially for research, but apparently it was mostly for his enjoyment. So by 1954, trips from New Jersey to New York City were taken for Richard to find people to kill. He would look for people that annoyed him or slighted him, and if that didn't work, he would just select somebody at random.
Oh gosh.
So not particularly picky, but sort of picky, kind of
Yeah.
weird.
Yeah.
Apparently, he was moody about it too, so he would either stab, shoot, strangle, poison, bludgeon, just about anything you could imagine from brass knuckles to ice picks and even hand grenades, apparently.
Oh my gosh. That's crazy too, because usually they have like a specific way they like to kill.
No, and it's funny because of that variety, the police couldn't be convinced it was one person killing all of these people.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and apparently from the story, his favorite weapon was a nasal spray bottle filled with cyanide.
Oh,
Yeah,
that's
so
awful.
yeah, and he was actually considered disturbed by the actual family members in the in the mob as well. So they consider him the devil.
Oh gosh.
Yeah, if the mob thinks you're bad, you're in trouble, right?
Yeah, that's a really good point.
Yeah. So as psychotic as he was, he did have one rule about no women, no children. So slightly moral, I guess.
Got an honor code, you know?
Oh yeah. So he did have some very specific methods he used in order to avoid detection. So he would remove fingers and teeth. He melted the bodies in oil drums and he would left them in scrap car trunks to be crushed, throw them down mine shafts or in the Hudson River. A lot of the times he would freeze the victims and leave the bodies dumped. Sorry, let me try that again. He would freeze the victims and leave them the bot. Oh, fuck. I did that wrong. There we go. Try that one more time. Okay, so yeah, he would freeze the victims, and then months or even years later, he would dump the bodies. So by the time the police found the bodies, they'd be thawed and appeared to have died recently.
Oh, okay.
So hence the nickname Iceman,
Okay, that
and
makes
not the
sense.
yeah, not the Top Gun one either. So the police at the time only suspected the homeless people were killing each other. So clearly he was never thought of as suspect in any way.
Yeah.
So Richard was married in 1961, and at the time there was a rumor he had 65 victims. His wife Barbara had no idea. They ended up having three children and lived in a New Jersey suburb, and they were considered the ideal all-American family.
Oh.
Little do they know, as they say. So murdering for the mob was lucrative. The children went to expensive private schools. They hosted barbecues by their pool and went to Disneyland over the holidays.
Oh, okay.
He, yeah, and he was also an usher at the Sunday Mass. So he really got into that part.
Okay. Very weird, but
Yeah,
okay.
an usher who's going to line you up for something later.
Yeah.
So the only odd thing for Barbara was that Richard had a temper, was abusive. He did leave bruises and actually broke her nose on one occasion.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, but she stayed with him. So the Family Man Act worked for about 25 years, didn't share any personal information with the criminals he worked with, never socialized outside of work, and didn't do any drugs and avoided prostitutes. So kept a pretty strict, number of rules for himself.
Yeah.
So for him, he was able to compartmentalize it and figure he was an employee. This was his job, and he wouldn't buy anything from the mob. He wouldn't socialize or, associate in that regard anyway.
Okay.
So by the 80s, he got a little greedy. started his own crime ring, and
Oh,
that's
geez.
that's kind of where things went south for him.
Yeah, you don't fuck with the already established families.
No, but the problem was he's just very poor at it.
Oh.
S-
Okay.
Yeah. So, a man named Phil Solomien was a local mafia and a friend, or as close of a friend as you could get to Richard. But he was also part of an ATF sting. So he brought Richard to Agent Dominic Polifront. Now, Agent Polifront came to Richard with a job, recorded the conversation of Richard's promise to murder for money. And because of that, we have unmarked cruisers surrounding Richard and Barbara in 1986 on their way to breakfast.
Oh.
Well, yeah, while holding them at gunpoint, investigator Pat Kane informed Barbara that her husband was a murderer.
Did she care?
Somewhat. So at that time, he was charged with 5 murders, and in 1988, he was found guilty on 4. He ended up having 2 more murder convictions, and he was given consecutive life sentences.
Oh, wow.
So the story is that the Iceman had about a body count of 300 people.
Oh.
Yeah, it's as I said, it does seem very fantastical in the way he talks about it. So
Yeah, I mean, I can see his number being pretty high, especially if he was working for those crime families, but 300 is a lot.
yeah, and I mean, working for the mob means he could probably hide stuff a lot better too.
Yeah, yeah.
So he was very talkative. He would talk to prosecutors, psychiatrists, reporters, criminologists, and anyone who was willing to lend an ear. So
He just told everybody.
exactly. So
Okay.
so because of his constant talking, they were able to make 2 documentaries that he consulted on.
Oh my God.
Oh yeah, and he spoke candidly about every murder. He even claimed to have murdered Jimmy Hoffa for a payout of 40 grand, which is about 233,000 or 230,000 today.
Oh, wow.
So that would have been a good amount. Of course, Hoffa's body's never been found, so there's no way to prove it one way or the other. So although he had zero regrets or remorse for the murders, he did feel bad for hurting his family. He wanted their forgiveness more than anything. So Richard started to have health problems. After 25 years in prison, he was diagnosed with inflammation of the blood vessels, which is an incurable.
Oh,
I didn't any take up any time to look it up because I just figured it's self-descriptive for the most
yeah,
part.
this sounds pretty. Yeah.
So he was transferred to a hospital, and Barbara was able to visit him for the last time. So while he was fading, he did ask to be revived if he died. So, wanted to be resuscitated.
Mm-hmm.
But as Barbara left, she signed a do not resuscitate form. So a week before his death, they called her to see if she changed her mind. She didn't. So Richard Kuklinski, the Iceman killer, died March 5th, 2006. And obviously Barbara did not like him. So I do have
Yeah.
one, yeah, I do have one quote from him.
Okay.
So on one occasion, Richard Kuklinski recalled preparing to kill a man who was begging and praying for his life. Kuklinski told the man he could have 30 minutes to pray to God to see if God would come and intervene. But God never showed up, and he never changed the circumstances, and that was that. It wasn't too nice. That's one thing. I shouldn't have done that one. I shouldn't have done it that way. So it's an interesting way to be remorseful, I guess.
Yeah, that's, I mean, the thing that you're remorseful for, you know?
Yeah, giving a guy time to pray to God.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting. I like how the wife got him in the end, though.
Yeah, and he'll never know. Like he
Yeah.
died not knowing. So
That's really,
she
that's a good twist. I like that.
yeah. So and I got all this stuff from All That's Interesting. So that
Oh,
was the article.
Jessica's favorite.
Yeah, and as I said, there was a couple articles on it that refuted it and said it was not true, and he was just a
Gotcha.
pathological liar, and he got arrested for murdering 4 people, and that's how the whole thing
That's
ended up
it.
starting. Yeah.
Okay.
So, and
Gotcha.
like you said, it does sound very, very much like a fantasy, even in his world. So,
Yeah. Yeah. I'm sure the truth is somewhere much lower, but there's probably more than four, I would assume.
oh yeah, and I imagine to actually look into this story in depth means you're going into the crime families and looking at a lot of stuff. So
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
it's
And
probably
who knows?
hours.
Yeah. Who knows with those crime families, man?
Yeah, no one knows. That's kind of the secret, right?
Yeah. Whew.
Okay.
Well, good story. Jessica told me you have some dad jokes.
I do. I have the
Yeah.
wonderful box of dad jokes here. Hopefully, I don't have any repeaters.
If
All
you
right.
do, I won't remember. So,
Fair enough. All right. So, why couldn't the toilet paper cross the road?
why?
It got stuck in a crack.
Ah,
What kind of a bone will a dog never chew?
I don't know what.
A trombone.
I'm so bad at these.
That's why they're dad jokes. I'm good at it from a dad, but in other words, no. What do you call a pile of cats?
A Meowton.
That's it. There you go. You got
I
that one.
love that joke. That's my favorite.
Yeah. And where can you always find the thing you lost?
The last place you looked.
You got it. So I guess we'll end on the ones that you succeeded on.
Woo!
So I'm supposed
Well,
to say everybody's supposed to rate and review us on Spotify and Apple Podcast.
yes, please. And if you'd like more of us, lovely lady and man, but ladies, you can find us on TikTok, YouTube, Instagram, and Facebook. And join our Patreon. It's $3 and you get an extra bonus episode a month and a sticker with our beautiful cartoon faces on them.
Yes, that would be very nice.
Yeah. So thanks for tuning in, and we look forward to sharing 2 new stories next week. Bye.
Bye.